Welcome to Art Ed Radio, the podcast for art teachers. This show is produced by the Art of Education University, and I'm your host, Tim Bogantz. We are in for an interesting conversation today, and my guest will be Yunga Webb. Yunga works at a school in New York called the North Country School, which is a small private school in upstate New York who has a really strong arts program, and they do some very interesting, very cool things with their middle schoolers there. I would encourage you to check it out if you like what you hear in the interview today. Yunga has a really impressive history in education and in the performing arts, and I'll let her tell her story, but I think you'll be interested. And we will talk today about the power that the arts have to help kids find their place, how they can create a space for kids to discover and express themselves, especially at an age here where there are few other places in which they can do those things. So in her career, Yunga has paid particular attention to how students are able to learn about themselves and how they're able to learn how to express themselves through the arts. And I am looking forward to talking to her about that and so much more today in our conversation. Let me bring her on now. All right, Yunga Webb is joining me now. Yunga, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing so great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we're very excited to talk to you today. Appreciate you joining us. To start with, can you just give us a brief introduction, tell listeners a little bit about yourself? You know, either arts related, education related, or both, just whatever you would like to share.
I grew up in a very large family in Las Vegas, Nevada, most of my life. We are a singing family, and my mom is probably the best voice teacher I know. And so
Okay.
that was the family business, singing and performing. And so being a performer who is basically who I am. I found myself on professional stages all over the world, but we're also educators. And so now half of us are professional performers and half of us are educators. And so I spent most of my career in education as the performing arts chair, where I taught theater classes, directed musicals, choirs, and plays, and things of that nature. I have been able to foster what I have learned as a student, and I was able to foster that through the performing arts. And so it's kind of an interesting spin. People don't realize how that space lends for a sense of belonging for everyone. And so it was just a kind of a natural movement.
Okay, I love that. And I would love to dive into the idea of belonging, how we can foster that through the arts. Maybe in just a little bit, I do want to hear, or I guess I would love listeners to hear a little bit more about your schooling. They'd be interested in that. So I mean, you can obviously speak to it better than I can, but you have a focus on the arts, and I would just love for you to talk about some of the things you do there at North County School, what your students are doing there, what students are doing in the visual and performing arts.
Mhm. So I will speak to my early education, my formative years. My parents had enough foresight to ensure that at least the oldest three, there are eight of us, went to a private school in the 80s in Las Vegas. And so we went to school along with the children of the people who owned the casinos and the hotels. And
Okay.
of course, we were the one Black family, and we were the one family that mom was picking us up and the car would backfire, and have the money, and we were just different. But we were bright and we were hardworking, and that was a really great foundation and set me up for success academically for the rest of my academic career. I went to a performing arts high school in Las Vegas, and then also I wanted to do it professionally as a teenager. So my parents set me up, and I lived nearby my voice teacher, who was a world renowned voice teacher, taught all the big stars: Barbara Streisand, Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson. Um,
Nice.
and I was able to study with him while I was attending a top performing arts high school in Los Angeles as a 16, 17-year-old. And then I went on and finished my senior year with my parents in a regular. They had moved to Utah. And then eventually found myself in college studying sociology, still performing with their performing groups, that would travel the world. It was called Young Ambassadors, and we did like a Broadway review style show. And then I studied sociology, which is kind of, I guess, where my formal education began in education and the study of people and human behavior. And then I went on to get my master's in education, instruction, and curriculum. And the rest is history. I feel like there's more schooling that is going to happen, which I kind of hate to say out loud, but when you're a lover of learning, it just kind of doesn't stop.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Asked what I do at North Country School. So I spent most of my adult life in Southern California. And so coming from Newport Beach area, Orange County, to the Adirondack Park at North Country School was quite the geographic change. 6 months of hard winter. Uh,
Yeah.
Outdoor enthusiasts, they are hiking mountains, they're skiing, snowboarding, snowshoeing, and rock climbing. And I've tried all of those things, but I don't do any of them. And so the students and what I do here is my first year I took a whole year to, well, half of a year to really put my ear to the ground and get a sense for what is needed within this community, because I
Mm-hmm.
realize it's not one size fits all. Like some communities are stronger in belonging and really need focus on diversity. Some
Yeah.
communities are stronger in diversity and nobody feels like they have a voice or a seat at the table. So that is kind of what I do. Is I built a tailor-made program for this school that will help them along that journey, so that every student that comes and boards with us, we have a 4th through ninth boarding population, feels like this is home. It's important for kids to feel like it's home when they live here,
Mm-hmm.
including faculty and staff. And so that is the kind of work that I do here.
Okay, so let me ask you then. You're talking about putting together a program of DEI and helping teachers kind of foster that sense of belonging. Can you talk a little bit more about the specifics of that? Like, what do you do with teachers? What are your interactions with teachers that kind of help them foster a sense of belonging in their own classrooms or at that school? And can you talk about maybe some ideas that could transfer beyond just your school? Like, what kind of ideas that you work with are universal, that teachers anywhere, like anybody who's listening to this, may be able to bring into their own classroom?
Mhm. Well, as I mentioned, the things that they value at the school in terms of how they spend their time, their recreation, they're not things that I'm comfortable doing.
Right.
And so just being who I am, not somebody who is comfortable in the outdoor spaces, and owning that that's not where I live, it's not my comfort
Mhm.
zone, and stepping fully into that. People looked at me, this is faculty and staff and students, and they're like, "Well, why are you here?" And by example, I had to show them that everyone should be here if they want to be here. We also have the arts, we also have farm and garden, and it's okay that I don't roll like that. It's okay that I'm exactly who I am. And so by modeling that, sometimes it's uncomfortable because I have to lead by example.
Mhm.
But it allows people to check their own bias and say, "Oh, right, you don't have to love rock climbing. That's okay. Like you can love ceramics and just do ceramics and be fine and be great." And really, they should, because that's one of our signature programs. Um, just having conversations, I've been able to offer a lot of professional development. And in that professional development, we are constantly doing activities. For example, and this can go for any community, where we're affirming who people are. So
Right.
there's a game we play. I call it a game. It's really an activity, but I like the kids to think it's a game, and even the adults, because then it just feels fun, where everyone goes around and says something that is one of their identifiers. I identify as a single mother, or I identify as a dog lover, or I identify as an artist, or I identify as a singer, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
people get a chance to step in the circle and say, "Oh, me too, me too." And you get to see who else is like you. And if no one else steps in that circle, I identify as an alligator lover. Like if somebody steps in, or somebody who, I identify as something that may be unique, and they're the only one stepping in, we all affirm them by snapping our fingers. Um,
Okay.
so that's it gives a sense of belonging, and it helps you to understand what you have in common with people that you didn't know you had. And that's one of my favorite activities. Kids and adults like it the same.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like that a lot, and I think yeah, those are some universal ideas that foster a good sense of belonging and can really help. So, I guess yeah, I would like to maybe dive a little bit deeper into just how some of these ideas are helping students. I would, I guess, love for you to talk about what you're seeing with students. With that sense of belonging, being part of a strong community, especially one that values the arts like your school does. They value self-expression, belonging, things like that. So how is that helping kids? Like, what are you seeing with
Mhm.
kids when they're part of that community, when they have that sense of belonging? Because I think that is something that's really important during the middle school years.
Absolutely. Uh, People underestimate how important it is for students to feel like they belong in the community that they are taking up space in, because how will they grow and thrive if they're constantly feeling like this isn't their space? And it is
Mm.
our job as
Yep.
educators
Yep.
to ensure that they are thriving, because the world isn't so great. The world isn't going to always give space for you to belong. So in these years, we need to provide that space. As you know, my background is, as I mentioned, is in performing arts, and I really, really love what they do here at North Country School, where we have a play, excuse me, or a musical where every student, I would say 95% of the student body participates. They find how they want to participate. Do they want to be a lead? Do they want to be a small part? Do they want to do the industrial arts, which is the tech side of the theater?
Right.
Are they
Right.
wanting to stage manage and finding that space? And that's actually how I ran my programming at my last school, is not forcing people into spaces that they're not comfortable, but finding out what they value, and booing them up and making them,
Yes.
teaching them, and helping them learn so that they can own that space. And we do that very well here at North Country School.
Yeah, I love that. And I think there's something to be said too about every role being important. Like the lead is not necessarily the most important part, but just like everybody plays a role and every role has value. And I think that's something that if we can get across to kids, is something that can be really beneficial for them. So I like that
Absolutely.
idea a lot.
I know it's cliche to say there are no small parts, but there's so
Right.
many aspects of the arts that people can find. Actually, every student can find themselves in the arts. Like in any different aspect, you can find what is your lane. And once you find that, I mean, that's a life changing situation.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And I taught high school forever, and just being able to see kids realize like, oh, hey, I'm really good at drawing, I'm really good at ceramics or whatever. And just having that sort of become their niche, like, oh, this is what I do. Or going back to the idea of, identifying as some, like, I identify as a painter, I identify as a ceramicist. If they can get to that point, it really can build their confidence, and you can see that carry over to a lot of different areas. So yeah, that's kind of a cool one to think about. So I like
I love
that.
that. Yes. And we have so many different types of art. Industrial arts, which we have a really, really amazing industrial art teacher, where basically we use items from the community, discarded items, and create art with that.
Yeah.
We do industrial arts, we do ceramics, we do dark room and graphic design and digital photography. So many different places people can find themselves.
Yeah, that's amazing for a middle school to have so many
Honestly,
different options like that. That sounds very, very cool. So I love that. And then I guess finally, I like to ask my guests for advice for teachers who are listening. So for all of the art teachers out there, what would you say are some of the important things that teachers can do to help their students? Whether that is, fostering that sense of belonging, community, other things outside of that. Like you've obviously seen a lot of great teachers in your time in education, your time in the arts. Like, what are the things that the best teachers do consistently in order to help their students?
wow. I think the best teachers know their students. And I know that
Mm,
feels so basic and common. Oh, I know my students. But no, you can't, for lack of better words, paint with a broad stroke. You have
right.
to understand each student, what their needs are, where they thrive, and create. I know this may feel like a lot of work, but create programming for them. And it isn't, because when I walk into a classroom, or some of my best classroom times is looking over the class and seeing everybody doing different things, but working so healthy. Chaos, organized chaos is
Yeah.
what I like to call it. So knowing your students is first and is key. So if you know a student that just needs that space to create, and in whatever realm that they create, provide that for them. If you know somebody who's really good at organizing and they don't feel like they have an artistic bone in their body, there's a space for them. How
Yeah.
can we make that? Maybe we're creating an art show and this person is responsible for putting that on. There are careers in the arts that you don't have to be like. I can't draw or build or paint anything that looks like anything. Oh, but I find my space in the arts. And I think art teachers need to remember that everyone has their space, and personalize it for them. So that does require that you know your students, and you know their strengths and their weaknesses and their pitfalls, and help them navigate those things.
Yeah, that's great advice. I really like that. And there's something that we always talk about in art with choice and voice, giving students choice, helping them find their voice. And like you said, it can be difficult to do that for a lot of students, especially if you're seeing 150, 200 kids. And that's a lot to get through. But I think it is something that can be a goal for all of us as teachers. I think being able to know your kids and sort of build those learning opportunities that speak to them, I think is really worthwhile. So that is some good advice, and I appreciate that. So thank you.
Absolutely. And to your point, with that volume of students, it's going to look very different. Maybe it's different
Hmm.
groups of students, and things of that nature. There is a way, whether you have small classrooms or large classrooms, whether you have resources or not, to just kind of maximize that opportunity for your students.
All right, Young. Anything else that you want to share before we let you go?
No, but I do want to give a shout out to all of the art educators everywhere. The work we do is super exciting, and you have to be passionate about what you're doing, because if you don't have it, why would you want to go the extra mile to make it great for your students? So, if that means changing how you do it so that you are the most exciting person in that room, I think is very important. But shout out to all the art educators. These are my people forever and always.
I love it. Thank you. And Younga, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you to Younga for coming on. I appreciate her insight, her recommendations, and especially what she had to say at the end about how we, as teachers, can find a place, a space, a purpose for each of the students who come through our classroom. So I hope you also enjoyed the conversation, and I hope there were some good takeaways from it for you. Okay, some food for thought, some new things to explore, and some ideas or takeaways that might make it back to your own classroom. Art Ed Radio is produced by the Art of Education University with audio engineering from Michael Crocker. Thank you, as always, for listening, and we'll be back with you next week. One last thing before we go. I want to remind you that our Now conference is happening at the end of July. So it'll be July 31st, August 1st, and August 2nd. Day one is our kickoff event with games, a ton of giveaways, ton of prizes, and a couple awesome art making sessions. Day two is the main event with more art making, a ton of presentations on all different topics for art teachers. And day three, you can revisit all of it, find some new presentations, some additional presentations, and keep coming back for the next year with the AfterPass. Now, all 3 days of the conference are spectacular professional development, and I hope you can join us. If you haven't registered yet, you can find all the information you need on the AOEU website. We hope to see you there.